welcome inside the Friday Night Huddle. I'm Dave Bacon, as always joined by the playmakers, Dan Labbe, Chris Fedor, both from cleveland.com. Guys, week 9 of the high school football regular season. Everybody's positioning to get into those playoffs that are coming up in just 2 weeks. Where'd the season go? Let's take a look at the games we will be spotlighting. We have cleveland.com and student reporters all over Northeast Ohio. And here are the games that we will be spotlighting. Bedford and Lorain, both teams needing wins to lock down playoff berths. How about this one? A couple of unbeatens as we head into week 9. Cuyahoga Heights and Kirtland, two small school powers. NDCL trying to fight their way into the playoffs. Hoban trying to hold on and be a top seed as they try to repeat in Division 3. A Suburban League battle, unbeaten Brecksville, once beaten Stowe. Going at it in the Suburban League, Avon Lake and Midview. Avon Lake needing a win to lock down the playoff spot up. Keystone and Buckeye. Chardon, the Hilltoppers are unbeaten. They travel to South Euclid. They'll take on Brush and Shaker Heights and Solon. And guys, we have great matchups all night long. We will update you. Some pregame, we'll have scoring updates. But let's take a closer look at some of these games that we're going to focus on. We'll start with Dan Labbe. Dan, what one grabs your attention of the games we've just mentioned?
I got to look at that small school matchup. Kirtland and Cuyahoga Heights, a possible playoff preview. And for Cuyahoga Heights, they haven't beaten Kirtland in a long time. Last year, Kirtland beat them twice, including in the playoffs. That game is going to be interesting to watch because it is old school football at its finest. The game might take about 2 hours to get in with both these teams running the football. And it's interesting with Kirtland. Even their toughest game against Independence, they ended up winning 27-11, 6-3 at halftime. They blew it open late, 401 yards rushing in that game. So Kirtland, they know who they are. Cuyahoga Heights knows who they are. 2 top 5 AP teams in that division. This is what you want in Week 9.
Yeah, and you know, it's really tough for Cuyahoga Heights because they're in Kirtland's region, and Kirtland is one of those teams that seems to always be in the state championship game against a team from the MAC, the mighty MAC, the small school power schools. Of course, they did defeat Marion Local last year in the state championship game. So Tiger Laverty has the Kirtland Hornets playing well, as he always does. The playbook isn't very big, but the execution is outstanding for the Hornets.
However, don't forget, it is an even year. It is 2016, and for Kirtland, that has meant runner-up as opposed to state champions. So that's something that maybe Cuyahoga Heights has on its side tonight.
Kind of the reverse of the San Francisco Giants in Major League Baseball. Even number of years they won, but they didn't do it this year. So,
that's right.
So maybe the even year jinx is broken on all fronts. Which one are you looking at, Chris?
I'm looking at Bedford and Lorain. You've got two teams both in the playoff picture coming into tonight's game. Bedford, first loss was 2 weeks ago against Cleveland Heights. Bounced back last week. High-powered offense. One of the offenses that has been putting up video game-like numbers. Then on the other side, you've got Lorain. Opens up the season, back-to-back losses, has ripped off 6 straight. If they win tonight against Bedford, it could set up a showdown for the LEL title next week against Cleveland Heights. And on top of that, you talk about Lorain, a team that has not beaten Bedford since 2011. So if Lorain wants in, and they don't want it to come down to next week's game against Cleveland Heights for the playoffs, got to do it tonight.
Important to note, Lorain is in Division I Region 2. A little different. They're further west. That's how that's divided. So that's why they're not in the Division I Region 1 that focuses mostly on Northeast Ohio. Well, we had mentioned we have reporters all over. Let's check in with Tim Bielek. He has a preview of Lorain taking on Bedford. Tim, take it away.
This is Tim Bielek with cleveland.com and the Friday Night Huddle, coming to you tonight from George Daniel Field, Lorain, on a windy and cloudy Friday night for some Lake Erie League football in Week 9. Tonight, it's 6-2 Lorain hosting 7-1 Bedford in a matchup of two teams vying for the LEL championship. Now, Lorain has stopped here at George Daniel Field, but that doesn't mean the conditions are great. It's a grass field, so there's going to be some mud likely tonight. The wind's blowing from one end zone to the other, so it's going to help one team out at a time. Looking at this matchup, the Titans come in having won 6 in a row. They've had to go to their backup quarterback in Justin Sturgill, but he's got plenty of talent around him, including Deshaun Brooks, Carlos Chavis, and on defense, Naz Bahan in the defensive end. The Bearcats, very talented offense as well, led by quarterback Arshawn Wilson Boone. He's got a pair of great targets as well in Trent Cloud and Davion Johnson. Should be a fun one here in Lorain. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at @Bielik_Tim, as well as the hashtag Friday Huddle for all the highlights here in Lorain tonight.
All right, and you get an idea of how windy it is there. Take care, Tim. Batten down the hatches.
That sounded like week 9 is supposed to sound in Northeast Ohio.
First week in Northeast Ohio where the weather is really going to come into play. And you wonder how it's going to affect some of these teams. For an aerial team, probably going to be grounded. For a team that relies on speed, quickness, maybe not so much if you're talking about the grass field. So I'm wondering about Bedford going into that game with their spread offense, all those weapons around Arshawn Wilson Boone, and if they can continue to have the same kind of success in the passing game with those kinds of conditions.
The other thing to keep in mind with both of these teams is both of them finish with tough games as well. Lorain will play Cleveland Heights, and Bedford gets Copley. So, and neither of them is guaranteed. They're both in pretty good shape as far as the playoff goes. But you lose 2 games back to back like that, and anything can happen as far as the playoff picture goes. So basically playoff intensity with Bedford taking on Lorain. Both of them need a win to kind of lock down that playoff spot, and you definitely want to lock that down before week 10.
You don't want to leave your fate in other people's hands. If you have an opportunity to control what can happen to you in week 11, you want to do that. And when you lose a game this late in the season, for a lot of teams, you're giving that opportunity away.
Yeah, and the game that I'm really looking at is the Stowe and Brecksville game. Suburban League Championship on the line pretty much. Brecksville 8-0, and really you look at who they've played, and their toughest 2 games are ahead of them. They'll play Stowe tonight. They'll play Hudson next week to finish up the regular season. Stowe has that loss on the 2-point conversion a couple weeks ago from Hudson. And this is really the litmus test for the Bees. Do you deserve to win a championship?
Right.
Go out and beat Stowe.
Yeah, and like you said, you've got Stowe this week, you've got Hudson next week. So right now, Brecksville controls their own destiny, but it's not an easy destiny because those are 2 very good teams, and everyone's looking at Brecksville saying, okay, are they for real? We know about Stowe. We know who Stowe is. Mm-hmm. What about Brecksville? Is Brecksville for real? So we're going to get a lot of answers about that team tonight, and that aerial attack, and that quarterback. How good are they against a really good defense in these conditions, like you mentioned?
That's the one thing that the Bees do have on their side going into tonight's game. Again, we don't know what the conditions are going to be like, and Stowe's defense probably the toughest test that the Bees have had all season long, but there's a confidence around Brecksville Broadview Heights because of their offense being able to put up so many points. They feel like they're in every game. They feel like they can strike quickly, and they feel like in Luke Sternad, they have one of the best quarterbacks in Northeast Ohio, and that's got to be a comforting feeling, even though you're playing against mighty Stowe.
Well, our Nate Klein is covering that football game for us, Stowe and Brecksville. Nate joins us with a preview. Take it away, Nate Klein.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's Nathaniel from cleveland.com here at Stowe for the Suburban League National Division game against Brecksville. Now, Brecksville has an undefeated record of 8-0 coming in with a 5-0 record in the division, whereas where their opponents have a 7-1 overall record and trail them 4-1 in the division. Now, this game is critical if they want to try to capture the title this year. But they still also have another team lingering kind of in the hunt also and that is Hudson. Again, this game is critical not only for the title, but also for the playoffs. Win here.
And Nate, veteran there, is he's dressed in the rain gear to be down on the field.
Ready to go.
That's the sign of a veteran reporter. He's ready for the elements.
And don't head out there until you have
Exactly.
to. Stay in that press box until the very last minute.
That's absolutely the sign of a veteran who has covered Week 9 in Ohio high school football. You don't go out in the rain until the game starts, and you also are dressed in rain gear. So we'll check in with Nate Klein, constant updates from that Brecksville and Stowe game. Should be an interesting one. Well, we mentioned student reporters. We have them at a number of games. 2 of them join us, Alex Porter and Andrew Triner. They have Hoover, and they're from Hoover. Hoover taking on Dublin, Jerome, and the Celtics wrapped up a playoff spot last week, but Hoover trying to win out and possibly get into the playoffs. Let's head to Alex and Andrew for their preview of Hoover and Dublin Jerome.
And I'm Andrew Schreiner.
Here at the Hoover Vikings Dublin Jerome game. Hoover is currently 4-4, 1-4 in Federal League play.
Dublin Jerome sits at 7-1, along with being 4-1 in league play.
Here at the game, it will be an interesting game. The Vikes have had a rough first 8 weeks. Last week they were able to pick up a 35-0 win against Federal League opponent, the Green Bulldogs.
Dublin Jerome, on the other hand, sits at 7-1. They've had a pretty good season. They lost last week to also 7-1 Hilliard Bradley, 31-28. Should be a good game tonight between two teams looking to pick up another win to hopefully boost their rankings and do better in the playoffs.
We'll come back right at you with some more highlights.
All right, we will check in again. Hoover at 4-4. If they can win out because of who they play the last 2 weeks, they have a shot in Division I, Region 1. Dublin Jerome has a playoff spot locked up. They're in Division I, Region 2, guys, so they're not in 3 with the most of the Central Ohio teams. Central Ohio kind of got split between 2 and 3. They have a playoff spot locked up, and as our student reporters, Andrew and Alex alluded to, first loss of the year for Dublin Jerome last week. They lost 31-28, 3-point game, undefeated heading into week 8. So it'll be a tough test for Hoover without question.
Yeah, and Dublin Jerome lost to a pretty good team in Hilliard Bradley as well. And for Hoover, they went through that stretch where they lost 4 in a row. They couldn't really score many points, so they really needed to get that win last week coming into this matchup, because you're coming into this game 5 in a row, can't score any points, you're in some real trouble. And now, because they get that one win, they still have a chance in all of this.
And Hoover leaned on the defense last week. First shutout for Hoover since week 7 of 2014, and they did it last week against a team that was averaging 32.6 points per game. So even though that offense continues to struggle for Hoover, and they've got questions on that side of the ball, leaning on that defense, it worked last week. Going to have their hands full against Dublin Jerome. However, the thing that I'm wondering, guys, about Jerome is this is a team that has never won more than 7 games in a season, and not only was last week the first loss of the year, but it snapped a 12-game winning streak. They clinched a playoff berth. I'm wondering about the motivation. I'm wondering about maybe a little bit of a hangover, emotional hangover, after feeling a loss for the first time in quite some time.
Well, the other thing that's don't discount getting on a bus for a 2.5 hour bus ride, and then coming into a hostile environment. Federal League, as you know, Mr. Commissioner, is it's not an easy task.
That's right.
You don't want to go in there. They're used to playing physical football. They're going to play tough up front. It'll be interesting to see how Dublin Jerome responds after coming off their first loss.
Yeah, and you know, that's always one of the tests when you look at teams. They've clinched the playoffs. Now they're playing for home field advantage. They want to get some momentum going into the playoffs. So there's still a lot on the line for this Dublin Jerome team.
And sometimes it's how you lose, too, that I wonder about the emotions from that game. They're up 28-24 against Hilliard Bradley, and they lose. They give up a score with 29.2 seconds left. That kind of thing can sting. It can linger. Maybe it slows you down in the first quarter, and maybe you don't really get your feet underneath you until the second quarter, third quarter. By that time, it could be too late.
Another game we're looking at, Hoban and Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. The Hoban Knights, the defending Division III state champions. Of course, our Ryan Isley is out there covering that, and Ryan has a preview of the Knights and the Notre Dame Cathedral Latin Lions. Take it away, Ryan.
Welcome to Akron and Archbishop Hoban High School. I'm Ryan Isley for cleveland.com and Friday Night Huddle. Tonight, Archbishop Hoban hosts Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. NDCL enters the game with a record of 6-2, and they sit 6th in the computer points in Division IV in their region. Last year, they made the playoffs as the 4 seed, losing in the first round. While NDCL is looking to strengthen their playoff resume, Hoban, on the other hand, is 7-1 and sitting 2nd in their region in Division III, a region in which they took home the state title last year. The Knights sit 5th in the cleveland.com Super Ohio 25, and tonight will add a new wrinkle as head coach Tim Terrell will prepare for his playoff suspension by allowing his head coaches to make the play calls. Terrell told me before the game I will have a headset on, but my coaches have told me to leave it on mute so that I cannot communicate with them and the kids can get used to hearing their...
Wow. So Coach Terrell muted our Ryan at the end of that.
Yes, he
Go
did.
figure.
Got into Ryan's
He's a
headset,
powerful.
apparently.
He's a powerful guy. And Ryan alluded to it. Recruiting allegations, sanctions leveled against Hoban, and so Tim Tyrrell will not be able to coach the Knights come playoff time. So a wise move. They're in a position where they can try to get things geared towards not hearing Coach Tyrrell, who did a great job in leading them to a Division III championship last year.
Yeah, he's been excellent. And the good news for Hoban is they've got a veteran team, a team that's been together, that has won together. They brought a lot of guys back from that team, most notably your quarterback and your running back, and Danny Clark and Todd Sibley. So they're still going to be in good shape. It's hard to do it without your head coach, but these guys know how to win, and they know how to stay together. And plus, look, the assistant coaches do a ton of work, too. With these. It's not just Tim Tyrrell doing the work.
And the flip side of that is it becomes a rallying point for your team. You know, those guys really like Tim Tyrrell. So you can be sure that'll be a little bit of extra motivation for the Knights come playoff time.
But it's so smart to start preparing now, no question about it, because they don't know what's going to happen. I mean, everything is still under investigation. The investigation is not yet complete. So obviously they're hopeful that they're going to have their head coach, but just in the off chance that they're not, they have some of this time to get acclimated to new voices, how they're going to run things. And it's smart to do it tonight, I would say, as opposed to doing it next week against Benedictine, the only team to beat Hoban last year during their state title run. That's something that I'm sure they remember.
Right. And the other thing is they want to kind of ease their way into it, so it's not, you know, boom. So you get a couple of weeks to transition into it, and, you know, so it's a great idea. Well, another game that we have a student reporter at is Riverside taking on Willoughby South. The Rebels of Willoughby South trying to get into the playoffs. They're currently definitely in the mix in Division II. Our student reporter, Andy Venelick, has a preview of Riverside and Willoughby South.
Tonight, we will be seeing Riverside Beavers take on Willoughby South at Willoughby tonight. Now, from a few weeks ago, we saw the Madison game. Riverside had some really sloppy passes, and their runs were average, to say the least. So Riverside's main goal tonight is to improve their passing and have better run plays, and most importantly, I think, especially on their end, is defense, because Willoughby is decent in both passing and running. So Riverside's best chance is to just play good defense, be smart with the ball, good communication, and good passing and good runs. Do that, then hopefully that will give us a win tonight. So go Riverside Beavers, and hopefully we'll have a good game, and hopefully it won't rain.
Oh, come on, rain makes it fun. That's our student reporter, Andy Venelick. And it's probably the natural grass that has him thinking, let's get the rain away from that. But in all seriousness, Willoughby South currently in the 8th spot, and they finish with Chardon. So they definitely have the ability to get points and can, you know, hold on to that. But you better get the Riverside win, because nobody's beaten Chardon yet. So.
Yeah, and 4 out of 5 wins for South. And in that Region 5, you start to list the really difficult regions, and there's just no room for error. You trip up once at this point, especially when you're not really high up there. Aurora is the only team that's unofficially clinched a playoff spot at this point. So you don't want to trip up, especially against a team like Riverside that you should be, because you mentioned that's a tough task. If you have to play and beat Chardon to get into the playoffs, good luck.
Yeah, again, Chardon runs wing tee. It's really hard to simulate. That's another game that we are going to continually update. The Hilltoppers, currently 3rd in that region, even though they're unbeaten, haven't really had the toughest of tests to date. They get the Brush Arcs, team that's 4-4, you know, fighting for survival as far as the playoffs go. A tough task ahead of Brush, though. Chardon, very good football team, starting to get some respect. Cracked our Super 25, which we'll look at a little later.
And we talked about how the weather might impact some teams. Not going to affect the Hilltoppers. They like the mud. They like the sloppy conditions. They're just going to run the ball all over the place, and nobody's been able to slow it down. It's so funny because you have an idea going into a game. Okay, I've got to stop this guy. I've got to stop that guy. And you have this game plan, and you think, all right, we're going to key in on those guys. But executing that is a lot more difficult once you actually go out there on the field, and it's not flashy for Chardon, but it's one of the highest scoring teams in Northeast Ohio.
And Brush, I mean, look, let's give some credit to Brush. They were 1-9 last season, 2-8 a couple seasons ago, and here they are, 4-4. They've still got some hope to maybe make the playoffs. They've replaced their quarterback. They made some changes there, and they're still in this thing. And obviously, this is a difficult task against Chardon, but maybe you can get that signature win and see where it takes you. It'll be interesting to watch how they play against an elite team like the Hilltoppers.
The only thing would be with the wind and the wet, the ball gets wet, and you run that wing tee, maybe the exchanges, maybe the Hilltoppers fumble exchanges. You just never know with the weather. Another game that we have a student reporter at is the Solon Comets taking on the Shaker Heights Red Raiders. Our Jeff Sabo from Solon Educational Television has a preview of Solon and Shaker Heights. Take it away, Jeff.
Hello again, everybody. My name is Jeff Sabo. I'm here for the Friday Night Huddle. Tonight's matchup, the Shaker Heights Raiders. They're going to come into Solon to take on the Comets here tonight. Shaker Heights, 5-3 overall on the regular season, but don't count them out just yet. Offensively, they pass the ball pretty well. Jameer Dismukes, 1,740 yards passing, 17 pass touchdowns. He also has 2 great receivers in Terrence Colvin and Micah Hills. All 3 of them have been best buddies since they were very young. They play well together, so watch them to pass the ball quite a bit tonight. On the other side of the football, this Solon team, they are having a fantastic season. They are 7-1 overall. They're looking to improve their playoff position. They have incredible defense. Matt Brown, 103 tackles on the season. He averages 13 tackles per game. JT Caver, 5 interceptions on the season. Ryan McCurry, he's had a lot of fumble recoveries and 3 defensive touchdowns. Meanwhile, offensively, the Comets getting it done. Thomas Wilkes, 14 touchdowns on the year, over 700 yards rushing. Joe Probonics, 19 passing touchdowns. He has 1,450 yards passing on the season. The Comets, they're off to a great roll this season. They're looking to increase their playoff position with a win tonight at Stewart Field.
All right, we appreciate it, Jeff Sabo. And the Comets, always tough to beat at Stewart Field, and really that might be one of the underappreciated teams in Division I. Their only loss came to Stowe. They lost by 3 points. They were moving in to potentially tie it, fumbled the ball as inside of a minute left. So that's a very good football team that's kind of angling to get a first-round home game in Division I, Region I.
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about Region 1, instantaneously everybody thinks about who? St. Ignatius, St. Edward, Menor. But there are a lot of other good teams in that region, including Solon, and trying to get that home game at Stewart Field, which can be a tough place to go in and win a game. And, right now, if the playoffs started tonight, they'd have Stowe in the first round, which I'm sure they would love to get another shot at the Bulldogs in the opening round of the playoffs. But for Shaker Heights, we talk about tough roads to get in. They're kind of hanging on by a finger right now, and they've got to beat Solon, and then they've got to beat Euclid. So it's not quite panic time for Shaker Heights, but they got to win this game tonight.
The Red Raiders goes, their offense goes. Jameer Dismukes, he's the quarterback. If you look at their 3 losses on the season, offense held to 22, 0 against Menor, and then 18 against Medina. So when their offense is going, they get some confidence. They really get it going. But when it's not, it's tough for Shaker Heights because they can't lean on the defense the way that a team like Solon can, St. Ed's can, Archbishop Hoban, those kinds of teams.
Well, and that's an overlooked aspect of the Solon Comets is their defense. They're outstanding, especially that linebacking core. I've said it a couple of times. That's a very good football team. And, the thing that I think is surprising, Thomas Wilkes, their running back, first year as a starter, and he just adds to what they want to do throwing the football.
Yeah, I mean, Solon thrives off kind of running a sort of pro-style type of offense, and a lot of play action, and you got to run the football to be able to do that. And there's always room for error too with that defense, like you mentioned, and that's what you love to have if you got a new quarterback and a new running back.
And I like the attitude too. We know that Solon is looking at this season and saying, that one loss that we got on that resume against Stowe. There are some teams that might look at a first-round matchup against Stowe and be like, I don't know if I want to go through that. Whereas I would think that Solon, the way that they're coached, the way that they're wired, they're saying, you know what? We would love another chance at them because they feel like they should have won that game as they were driving. They feel like that was an unforced error. That was on them that they lost that one.
Yeah, without question. That first game, and we've talked about it a couple of times, Stowe did a very good job. They scored on their first possession. They scored on their last possession. Solon held them out of the end zone in between a couple of missed field goals. They didn't make a field goal, but the Solon Comets, I think they'd welcome the Stowe Bulldogs and another chance to right that. Of course, Stowe knocked them out of the Division I playoffs a year ago, so you add that in, and there's plenty of motivation if the Solon Comets can get that first-round home game in Division I, Region I. We've got to step aside, take a quick time out. It's the Friday Night Huddle. Dan Labbe from cleveland.com, Chris Fedor from cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. We'll be back after a quick timeout.
As World Heavyweight Champion, Clevelander, and spokesman for Nature Stone, we'd like to present you with our own award.
Wow, it's awesome.
We had it made ourselves. It's made of...
Not the award, the floor.
Oh, it's Nature Stone.
Installed over concrete, Nature Stone flooring is tough, durable, long-lasting, and beautiful. Act now and get up to 50% off.
This is the only time you'll see me on the floor.
To schedule your free in-home consultation, go to naturestone.com today.
It's Friday night.
Friday nights are for high school football. And no one else covers it better than Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. Join Neil Zika and Matt Finkus for the biggest moments. Top highlights.
Check out the hit.
And in-depth analysis from around Ohio. High School Blitz. Friday nights at 11 with preview shows on Wednesday. Only on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel.
Just as athletes need proper sleep for optimum performance, so do fans. To be your best, you need your rest on a properly fitted mattress from Mattress Warehouse. A good night's sleep on the right mattress prepares you for whatever the day throws at you. Visit Mattress Warehouse for a custom sleep assessment, and we'll help you find the right mattress for a great night's sleep and a productive day. Sleep like a champion, play like a champion with the perfect mattress from Mattress Warehouse.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Reporting the Independence versus Berkshire game tonight here at Independence. The band, as you can hear, is getting ready.
We're not gonna make it.
Yes, that might be my
fantastic.
That is my absolute favorite student reporter, Krista DeFini from Independence. All right, band guys, band gals, come on, you got to top Krista DeFini here. Welcome back inside the Friday Night Huddle. I want to welcome you if you're joining us on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. Our student reporter, Krista DeFini, part of the band for Independence, says Independence with Berkshire tonight. Small school thing, but well done, Krista. Keep it up. And guys, we've as we talked, 7 o'clock, we're nearing kickoff for most of the games in Northeast Ohio, and one of the ones we didn't get a chance to touch on a little bit earlier, Avon Lake and Midview, which is a game you can see at 11:30 in its entirety on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. Midview has locked up their playoff spot, and we're going to take a look in live, as you see, and right now it's no score. Avon Lake has the football near midfield. Avon Lake is 7th in the region. They need a win to lock up their spot. And a quick little out is that's Carson Toy, who got the reception from Pappas. So they're near a first down. Midview has their spot in the playoffs locked up. If they win, they could potentially get a home game. Obviously, huge advantage. Avon Lake needs to win to get their spot. They beat Midview, they lock up a spot in all likelihood. If they lose, they could still get a way in, but in the 7th spot, when you lose in week 9, you open the door for teams to move in and grab that final spot or two, without question. Huge game for Avon Lake.
Yeah, they've got North Olmsted next week, which in theory would be a winnable game, but you never know for North Olmsted. That would essentially be their playoff game, a chance to knock Avon Lake out. And how about Avon Lake? Kind of bouncing back this year, opening up the offense a little bit, and they're going to have to against Midview, because if there's one thing we know about the Middies, they can score a ton of points behind Dustin Crum.
And that's something that Avon Lake has shown this year that they can do, something they couldn't do last year. Their offense averaged 19 points per game last year, up to 34 coming into tonight's game. So maybe in the past, they couldn't hang with a team like Midview. This year, with Mark Pappas at quarterback, Carson Toy at wide receiver, they have shown that they've got the kind of offense that can hang with Avon, Midview, Westlake, some of these other teams. They say it all the time, evolve or perish, and they've evolved. They've changed.
Yeah, and a tough loss last week for Avon Lake. They lost by a point, and the way they lost, they gave up a touchdown with 28 seconds left, decided to go for 2, did Olmsted Falls, and they got it, and they won 29-28. That is just a heartbreaking way to lose That's a 6-2 football team as well. So you kind of wonder, how's this game going to start for Avon Lake? So that's going to be critical.
And not only did they lose on the 2-point conversion, guys, but they had him. They had him in the backfield. They hit him before the goal line, and the quarterback was able to power his way through the tackle. So that's one that certainly does sting for the Shoremen, because they do have Midview tonight, and because there probably aren't going to be a lot of playoff points up for grabs in Week 10 against North Olmsted.
Right.
So if you look back on the season, that 1-point loss against Olmsted Falls, it could certainly sting. At the same time, as Dan said, for the Shoremen, this has already been a successful season because they've matched their win total from 2013 and 2014 combined.
Yep. And we touched on it earlier. We've got a battle of small school powers. 8-0 Cuyahoga Heights taking on 8-0 Kirtland. One of those games that kids live for, and we've got a preview coming up from Tim Bielek. He will be providing updates and Twitter highlights throughout the night. It's Matt Gould. Let's check in with Matt for a preview of Cuyahoga Heights and Kirtland. Take it away, Matt.
We're coming from Kirtland, where a battle of Division 6 unbeatens in the Chagrin Valley Conference Valley Division are about to get it at it tonight. That is 8-0 Cuyahoga Heights and 8-0 Kirtland, the defending Division 6 state champion Hornets. Kirtland won the toss, deferred to the second half, so we'll get to see Brett Lowther and the Cuyahoga Heights offense get to work first against Kirtland's defense, which has been a bit of a different look defense. Of course, they graduated Evan Madden, last year's All-Ohio Defensive Player of the Year in Division 6. Joey Bates is gone as well, but this Kirtland team has been looking just as good, if not better, than they did a year ago. Owen Lonkar leads the linebacking core in the defense at the middle. Joey Torok is their standout at running back. He's a pretty small sophomore, but he's got a lot of punch in that step. Looking at Cuyahoga Heights and the keys to tonight, I think it's going to come down to what we're going to see early on, and that's Kirtland's defense against Cuyahoga Heights' offense. Dylan Drummond, talented junior receiver, is the big standout and top target for Brett Lowther. So we'll see if Kirtland can slow them down a little bit. We're on a grass field. It's wet. It's been raining all day. It's been raining for a while. That could favor Kirtland. However, the rain has let up. So we'll see how that plays into things. Of course, the surface, it could get muddy because of all this rain. So we'll see what happens with this matchup tonight.
All right, Matt Gould, we appreciate the updates. And, the other thing is even though you run the football in these conditions, with it getting muddy and it's windy and it's as cold as it's been, turnovers are going to become a factor. Without question, teams that lose the turnover battle are going to be in trouble tonight.
Yeah, for a team like Kirtland that does a lot of different types of handoffs and fakes, things like that, for both these teams, really. That ball does get slippery. You got to hang on to it. You got to make sure it doesn't get knocked out of your hands. So a lot can still go wrong in the running game for these teams.
And for Cuyahoga Heights, I mean, this is the test that they've been waiting for this season. Obviously, they've won 8 straight games up until this point, and for the last 5 years, that Kirtland hurdle is one that Cuyahoga Heights simply has not been able to get over. So one of the reasons why Cuyahoga Heights continues to get overlooked at times in Division 6 Region 21 is because of Kirtland. You want to get that attention? You think you deserve it? Got a chance tonight against Kirtland.
Having said that, that Kirtland hurdle is pretty big for for a small school.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked about it. This is usually when they finish runners up and don't win state championships in the even number years. But I guarantee you, Tiger Laverde isn't buying that for a second. On the flip side of it, Al Martin has really developed Cuyahoga Heights into a perennial power, and kind of cool. He's the brother of Chuck Martin, who's the head coach at Miami of Ohio. So coaching blood runs thick in the Martin household, and it's just a cool story there.
And they keep churning out Durazios.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
It's Gobble, basically. Gobble for Stowe, Tupa for Brecksville Broadview Heights, and it's Durazio for Cuyahoga Heights. It's unbelievable. They've got at least one.
And especially at these small schools, it's like they find a bloodline, and they're like, all right, so when is your brother going to play? And then when is your younger brother going to play? And just keep getting them ready and giving them to me.
And you know what? You can be sure by the time they get in there and play varsity, they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, because they've probably seen it since the time they were 3 or 4.
Yeah, they've been in that play. They were getting that playbook read to them at bedtime when they were like 4 years old.
And those are the fun. Those are the ones where the community comes out and shows up, and those are the really fun games to see, and they're fun to see the way the kids respond to them as well. Big things for Kirtland and Cuyahoga Heights, and I'm sure Matt Gould will be providing updates throughout the night. That'll be fun to watch.
And if you're Cuyahoga Heights too, you'd like to know that you can beat Kirtland before you have to face them in the playoffs potentially. You'd like to at least, whether you win or not, you'd like to know that you're on the same level as Kirtland. You don't want to lose this game like 40-10. You want to compete with Kirtland for 48 minutes.
For Cuyahoga Heights, took a big step last week, beating Berkshire. That's a team that they lost to in double overtime by 1 point the week before they played Kirtland last year. So that's something that they have.
Oh, they had that game.
To be confident.
They had that game circled,
and they got it.
Yeah.
They got over that hurdle, so a reason to be confident. Got some momentum going into this one against Kirtland, as opposed to coming off a heartbreaking loss like they did last year. So certainly something for the Redskins to look forward to tonight.
Another game that we are keeping our eye on, and we will check in on throughout the night. 6-2 Keystone taking on 7-1 Buckeye, and Buckeye they're been in the playoffs the last 3 years. They're right on schedule to do that again. Mark Pinzone, head coach there, has done a great job since he's taken over. Our Bill Mayville will be providing updates. Let's check in with a preview of Buckeye and Keystone. Take it away, Bill.
Hey everyone, Bill Mayville checking in with a quick game preview for tonight's matchup between Keystone and Buckeye. Keystone comes into the matchup at 6-2 overall and 2-1 in conference play. They have an outside chance at winning the conference title for the Patriot Athletic Conference Stripes Division, but they would need to win tonight and next week in the regular season finale. For Buckeye, who comes in at 7-1 and 3-0 in conference play overall, they can almost wrap up the conference title with a win tonight. Both teams are really looking towards solidifying their playoff hopes. Right now, Keystone sits at 11th in their conference, or their division and region, while Buckeye is 4th. Neither team has locked up a playoff spot yet, but a win tonight would help both teams' chances immensely. Reporting at Steingrass Field at Buckeye High School, Bill Mayville for cleveland.com.
All right, we appreciate it, Bill Mayville. And, Keystone hasn't locked it up yet. They were 10-0 going into the playoffs last year, lost a triple overtime game to West Cuyahoga. Graduated a bunch of players, 20 of their starters graduated. And, some people thought they were going to be down. They lost their first game. They won 7 straight. So Coach Pinzone has the Bucks playing well. And again, they need a win. Without question, they need a win to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, that's how you respond after you come out 0-1. You just win 7 in a row, and you do it in convincing fashion. I mean, you look at 28-10, 43-7, 42-14. And they have a number of guys that can beat you, and they can beat you with the run. And it starts with Michael Dorsch. He's a dual threat quarterback. He can throw the ball, but he's also put up some big rushing numbers as well.
This is a big one for Keystone, too. Entering the night 11 in Division 4 Region 13. And Buckeye is a team that's Division 3 Region 9. So extra points for Keystone if they can get this win. And then they finish off the season against Firelands, a 6-2 team. So the avenue for the Wildcats to get into the postseason appears to be there. But they've got to absolutely beat Buckeye tonight. Then they've got to finish it off against Firelands. After a tough year last year for Keystone, that would be nice.
And as we mentioned, Mark Pinzone, the head coach for the Buckeye Bucks, in his 4th year there. They've made the playoffs all 4 years. Pretty good lineage for Mark Pinzone. You know, he was a longtime assistant for Rich Nowak at Brunswick High School. And then he went on and coached at Holy Name for a couple years as a head coach, and really took the job because it was closer to where, you know, his family lived. So he's done a great job with Buckeye. They are perennially in that mix, just like Brunswick used to be. You know you're going to get a good defense. You know they're going to run the football, and they're going to have a quarterback that makes good decisions.
And if you're a team that can always get to Week 11, even if it hasn't worked out quite yet, eventually something's going to bounce your way in that 11th week, and you'll get to Week 12, maybe Week 13, and you'll start to build your program a little bit from there.
Yeah, without question. Well, you know, each week here on the Friday Night Huddle, we take a look at the Super 25, the best 25 teams in the state of Ohio, regardless of division, as voted on by the folks over at cleveland.com. Some changes this week, but here is the Week 9 Super 25.
As we head into Week 9, the Super 25 has some new faces. 7-1 Midview checks in at number 25 after putting 56 points on the board against Lakewood last week. The Middies face Avon Lake tonight. Massillon Perry checks in at number 24 after a 35-0 shutout win over Uniontown Lake. The Panthers have a date with a top 20 team in Canton McKinley this week. Unbeaten Turpin from Cincinnati makes the Super 25 at number 23. Turpin faces Glen Estey tonight. The Chardon Hilltoppers, a perfect 8-0 on the year, crack the Super 25 at number 22. They will face the Brush Arcs this week. Cincinnati Elder falls 4 spots to 21st. The Panthers lost to Winton Woods last week. 26-17, they will play a team from Florida this week. Canton McKinley falls to number 19 after losing 19-2 to Glen Oak. The Bulldogs face number 24 Massillon Perry tonight. St. Xavier lost on the final play of the game with no time remaining. 19-18, they fell to Warren Central from Indianapolis last week. They fall 4 spots to number 20. The Men of X host St. Ignatius tomorrow afternoon on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel at 2 p.m. Upper Arlington moves up 4 spots to number 18 after doubling up Marysville. The Golden Bears face Central Crossing tonight. Dublin Kaufman falls 7 spots to number 17 after losing a 7-6 defensive struggle to Hilliard-Davidson last week. The Rocks will look to rebound against Westland. Hilliard-Davidson, 6-2 on the year, continues to impress. They cracked the Super 25 with that 1-point win over Kaufman. Brian White's guys face Marysville this week. The 7-1 Solon Comets continue to move up the ranking. Solon checks in at number 13 after putting 46 points on the board against Elyria. Solon faces Shaker Heights tonight. Hilliard-Bradley moves up 6 spots to number 15. The 7-1 Jaguars beat Dublin Jerome and have a date with Worthington-Kilbourne this week. Columbus St. Francis de Sales improved to 8-0 on the year with a big win over Logan last week. The Stallions check in at number 14. St. Charles is the opponent this week. Trotwood Madison improved to 7-1 with an impressive win over Stebbins. Xenia is up next for the Rams. Stowe moves up 2 spots to number 11 after their 37-0 shutout of Cuyahoga Falls. The Bulldogs face unbeaten Brecksville tonight. Mike Elder has his Avon Eagles flying high at 8-0. The 10th-ranked Eagles shut out Amherst 30-0. Avon takes on Berea Mid-Park this week. St. Ignatius was impressive in their 38-0 win over Moeller. The 9th-ranked Wildcats face 20th-ranked St. Xavier in Cincinnati on Saturday. You can see that game on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. Pickerington Central improved to 7-1 with a 17-14 win over Pickerington North. The Tigers tangle with Reynoldsburg tonight. Olentangy Liberty stays at number 7 after their 31-0 shutout of Olentangy. They will play Olentangy Orange this week. Toledo Central Catholic stays perfect at 8-0 after beating Findlay 28-7. The Fighting Irish play Toledo St. John's Jesuit tonight. The St. Edward Eagles stay number 3 in the Super 25 after a 28-point win over a Canadian team. The Eagles play Moeller down in Cincinnati tomorrow afternoon. Hoban held on to the 5th spot in the Super 25. The Knights shut out Walsh Jesuit 21-0. They face Notre Dame Cathedral Latin tonight. LaSalle stays the 4th-ranked team in the Super 25. The Lancers, no trouble at all with St. Charles from Columbus. 35-7 they win a week ago. They play a Canadian team tonight. 7-0-1 Wayne High School from Huber Heights stays at number 2 after shutting out Kettering Fairmont 35-0. The Warriors play 6-2 Springfield this week. And the Coleraine Cardinals stay the top-ranked team in our Super 25. Coleraine shut out Fairfield 28-0 last week. They will face Lakota West tonight.
So there you have it, the Super 25, and kind of interesting as you see a couple of those teams with Cincinnati and Cleveland playing each other. You got Moeller and Eds, Xavier and Ignatius, and then Eds and Ignatius next week to wrap up the regular season.
That's what you want to see, too. You want to see teams play each other. You don't want to see teams kind of hide from each other until maybe the playoffs. Go out there and play somebody, and that's what a lot of these teams, especially in Region 1, have started to do.
Is it a new thing to have so many teams from Northeast Ohio play Canadian temes?
I think it
seems like there's one every single week.
I think it's scheduling.
Yeah.
It's if you notice, it's the St. Ed's, tonight LaSalle tonight. Aurora does. It's all the teams that nobody will schedule of their like size. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're a Division III team, you really don't want to schedule Aurora, and that's so you want to get that 10th game for your kids.
Teams from Canada, they just sign up. They're all polite. Hey, sure, we'll play it, no problem.
Well, the Canadian prep team has 8 Division I recruits, and so it's kind of interesting. Well, one of the games that we are keeping close tabs on, Bedford and Lorain, and we have our first update of the night as Bedford and Lorain, and it's going to be the Lorain Titans with the football, and it's going to be Sturgill with the pass to Brooks. He grabs it, and he is gone. Split the defenders, 56 yards for the touchdown. Titans go for 2 and get it, so it's 8-0 Lorain. Taking the early lead on the Bedford Bearcats as nice job of splitting the defense, and the touchdown pass delivered, 56 yards.
It's so interesting, too, about the emotions of high school football and just football in general. So all of a sudden, Lorain, midway through a game against Sandusky, a team that hadn't lost to that point, has to go to a backup quarterback because their starting quarterback, Davion Dower, gets injured. And at that point, you could think, oh, boy, how are we going to get this win, and is our season over? And all of a sudden, quarterback Justin Sturgill comes in. He rallies them from behind to beat Sandusky, the only team so far to beat Sandusky. And they've won every game since then going into tonight's game. So going to their backup quarterback has not set them back. In fact, it's given them a little bit of an offensive lift, it seems like.
Well, 56-yard touchdown passes tend to, The guy, he beat the defense, and Sturgill put it right there. You can't ask for any more. I mean, it wasn't like it was a beautiful spiral, but beautiful spirals are going to be tough to come by with the wind and the wet ball. So he got it to him right in stride.
When you're a receiver, you got to go get the football sometimes. Your quarterback puts it where you can go get it. You've got to go get it, whether it's a spiral or a wobbler or whatever.
Well, we're in week 9, another unbeaten team. The Brecksville Broadview Heights Bees taking on the Stowe Bulldogs. And we've got an update from Stowe and Brecksville as the 7-1 Bulldogs driving the ball downfield and in the scoring zone against the Brecksville Bees. And you can see a little bit of rain there and Kyle Van Treese, a nice job. He finds Logan Lindsay, and you see that D1 arm as Van Treese put it on a line, and the touchdown gives the Stowe Bulldogs a 7-0 lead early in the first quarter on the Brecksville Bees.
Yeah, and I mean, that play was all about timing, right? You go where you're supposed to go, and I'll put the ball where it's supposed to be, and we'll meet there. And that's what a quarterback and his wide receivers have played together for a long time. And if you're Stowe, even with that defense, against Brecksville, you're going to have to put up some points because that team can score against anybody, I think. So it's good for Stowe to kind of get out to that early lead and put Brecksville in a position where they have to chase.
Yeah, the other thing is, as you get out to that lead, you can run the football a little bit more. And then all of a sudden the Bees are like, we want the football back. Don't keep our – and Stowe has the ability to do that, particularly with that offensive line. We're going to check in on the phone. Bryant Kaiser is covering the Chardon and Brush game. He joins us. Brian, what's going on out there?
Hey, the first quarter is already gone. And we 20 minutes. Everybody's running the ball. It's a breezy day, so that's the end of the first quarter right now. Brush and Chardon are tied at 7. Brush with a 10-yard touchdown run by quarterback Goodwin Joe, and their quarterback from Chardon, Tommy Bitternetti, with a 1-yard run. And like I said, the first quarter is already gone.
You got to like that. They're running the football. You don't have to stay out in the wet and rain and cold. Let's talk a little bit about the defenses. Have you seen any defense that gives you an idea they may be able to stop the other offense?
The first drive was an 8-play, 80 yards for Brush. Chardon had a 16-yard drive for about 70 yards and a touchdown. So they ran the football.
All right, Brian Kaiser, we will let you get back to that Chardon Brush game. Already 7-7 after the end of the first quarter. We knew there were going to be a couple of games that were like that. Wasn't quite sure it was going to be Brush and Chardon. We knew Chardon was going to run the football, but Brush doing it too.
And don't let that 4-4 record from Brush fool you, okay? Because this is a team that lost in the opener 24-20. Next week against 8-0 Perry, they lose 8-3, a baseball score right there. Another loss against Mayfield, 45-41. So you talk about those 3 games right there, all decided by less than 5 points or 5 points or less. And this is a team that easily could be 7-1 with a play here or a play there.
And the other thing, too, is they were 0-3 at one point. So that 4-4, keep in mind they were 0-3. So they've turned that season around. They're playing very good football since getting off to that start.
Well, it's one of the games that we are keeping an eye on. Avon Lake in Midview, the Midview Middies, scored, set up by a long run by Dustin Crump. No surprise there. One of the better quarterbacks, dual threat guy for the Middies. And Avon Lake coming back and responding as here it is. It's now 13-0, but there it is. Carson Toy from Pappas delivered pretty nicely, and a nice job of going and getting that by Carson Toy. So that'll cut that lead to 13-7. So nice job by the Shoremen. Fall down 13-0. They don't panic. They put together a nice drive, and that's a heck of a touchdown pass. You deliver that with some zip, as Pappas did, and Toy went and got it.
Good pass and good catch, and Pappas and Toy have a very good connection. In week 8, 8 catches, 92 yards, a couple of scores for Carson Toy. For quarterback, you love to have that one guy that you can always count on, and that's what Toy has been for Pappas.
And you can see why. Great route, got in front of the defender and put his hands out right there, snatched the ball before the defender could make a play. So you can see why Carson Toy has emerged as the go-to target for Mark Pappas. And I think you mentioned something there, Dave. They're down 13-0 against Midview. Maybe in years past, Avon Lake is like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? How are we going to rally from behind against that explosive offense? But there's a new confidence with the Shoremen. There's a new offense with the Shoremen. There's a new quarterback with the Shoremen. And when you average 34 points per game, you feel like you're never out of a game, even against a quarterback like Crum, even against a team like Midview.
The flip side of it is the way they lost that game that we touched on. Heartbreaking. They give up a touchdown with 30-some seconds left. They give up a 2-point conversion, and they lose by a point. To Homestead Falls last week, you fall behind. They didn't hang their heads. Put together a nice drive. Let's see if the Shoremen can get that done and even tie that up, take the lead potentially. Another game that we're keeping an eye on. Cuyahoga Heights taking on the Kirtland Hornets, that small school battle. And we've got somebody on the scoreboard first, and it's Cuyahoga Heights with the football against the defending D6 state champs. And it's a touchdown pass, and there it is, 7-0 as Cuyahoga Heights takes the early lead. Got behind the defense, delivered very nicely, and the Redskins take the early lead as it's 7-0 on Kirtland.
And you can see the emotion. It's the first score of the game. It's still the first quarter, but Cuyahoga Heights knows how big it is just to score points against Kirtland, just to have a lead against Kirtland. There are different stepping stones that teams have to take before you can finally overcome that big hurdle, that big obstacle that's been in your way. And getting on the board first, you saw that emotion. Now they have to make sure that they channel that emotion the right way, keep their heads together, and try and go get a stop and maybe another score, and then who knows?
Got to feel good. It's a confidence builder without a question for Cuyahoga Heights facing Kirtland. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We're nearing the end of that first quarter for those 7 o'clock games. Plenty of checking in from across the region and across the state. It's the Friday Night Huddle here on cleveland.com and Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. We'll be right back after timeout.
I'm Stipe Miocic, world heavyweight champion for Nature Stone, and Cleveland's first hometown champ. Fighting can be brutal, so can mold, mildew, or flooding on your basement carpet or tile. Get Nature Stone and never replace your basement flooring again.
Hurry, act now. Get Nature Stone and save up to 50%. That's up to 50% off authentic Nature Stone flooring.
Nature Stone, like me, simply the best.
Act now. Call or visit naturestone.com today.
Monday night is the night for Ohio Sports Talk, and it's all on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel. At 6, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason takes your calls live on More Sports and Less Levine. Then at 7, Dave Bacon and the boys unload on the weekend sports on Armchair Quarterbacks. And at 8, Bruce Hooley's out to make you the smartest sports fan around. Ohio's biggest night in sports talk. Monday nights only on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel.
Just as athletes need proper sleep for optimum performance, so do fans. To be your best, you need your rest on a properly fitted mattress from Mattress Warehouse. A good night's sleep on the right mattress prepares you for whatever the day throws at you. Visit Mattress Warehouse for a custom sleep assessment, and we'll help you find the right mattress for a great night's sleep and a productive day. Sleep like a champion, play like a champion with the perfect mattress from Mattress Warehouse.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Tuesday nights, it's More Sports and Less Levine live at 6. Then at 7, it's an all-new 11 Warriors report. And at 8, Game Time Ohio. It all starts Tuesday night at 6. Follow us on social media at TWC Sports OH. Across town and across the region, this is where fans belong. Time Warner Cable Sports Channel.
Welcome back inside the Friday Night Huddle. I'm Dave Bacon, joined by Dan Labbe and Chris Fedor from cleveland.com. One of the games that we are keeping our eye on, Hoban taking on Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. The Knights with an early 3-0 lead, and the offense driving the ball for the Hoban Knights as well. And Hoban back in scoring territory out of the shotgun. It's William Collier, the other running back, not Todd Sibley. William Collier could start for most teams. He gets into the end zone with a 14-yard touchdown run, 10-0, the Hoban Knights leading. And we had mentioned earlier Tim Terrell not going to be involved in the play calling. Doing okay so far, 10-0 in the early going.
Yeah, and William Collier, a guy we've talked about on this show before, a guy last year who played so well as kind of a change of pace and like you mentioned, just could start for so many other teams. And here he is backing up Todd Sibley, but he's always ready. You call his number, he's going to produce for you.
What a luxury to have.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. Todd Sibley needs a breather or something like that, or he's carried the ball a little bit too much, or you want to monitor his carries going into the postseason, you can just hand the ball off to William Collier, and you feel like you're not missing that much.
No, and he's different. He has a little burst, a little acceleration to him. Not that Todd Sibley doesn't, but he's a different type of back. Sibley lowers the boom and will run over you, and Collier a little more shifty, but a great compliment. And Hoban Knights looking good as they are 7-1 on the year and leading now 10-0, trying to improve to 8-1. They're currently second in their region in Division III. Marlington is the top seed in that, but you know the Hoban Knights, their only loss of the year is to St. Ed's in a game they pretty much outplayed the Eagles in. But so that team's loaded without question, and that defense is very, very good. So Hoban out to a 10-0 lead. You know, before the break, we had touched on just Cuyahoga Heights and what they were doing, and you know, let's see how Kirtland responds. Every year's a little different, you know, and so let's see how they respond being down 7-0. You know, it's so hard, and we've talked about this a couple of times, so hard to be unbeaten, to go through an entire season unbeaten. Well, here we are in Week 9, and we've got 2 8-0 teams. That's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to talk about. It's a lot of fun to watch.
And it's hard to be unbeaten and be the team with the target on your back every single year like Kirtland is. And for Cuyahoga Heights, this is important for them because they need to know, like I said earlier, that they can beat Kirtland because they haven't done it since 2010. They lost twice to them last year, including in the playoffs. And Kirtland's the team that's in their way if they want to get to wherever they want to get to. They've got to be able to beat Kirtland, and tonight could go a long way in showing those kids, hey, we belong on the same field as Kirtland, and we can beat them when it really matters come November.
And Dave, you're right. Getting tested is something that I think would be beneficial for the Hornets because
Absolutely.
The closest game that they've played so far this year is against Independence. The band celebrating, getting there to the game a little bit late, but close game, 16 points. And that's not really that close when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. 2 touchdowns and two-point conversions. So for them to get tested against an 8-0 team might not be a bad thing going into the postseason.
Well, one of the games that we're keeping our eye on, the Stowe Bulldogs taking on the unbeaten Brecksville Bees. And Stowe had the early lead on that touchdown pass from Van Treese to Logan Lindsay. And the Bees trying to respond, moving the football down the field and getting it into scoring area for themselves as Brecksville 8-0 on the year, taking on 7-1 Stowe. And Luke Sternad, their quarterback, throws it, and it is on the money. Nice job by Luke Sternad, as it's a touchdown pass, and that ties it up at 7-all. So the Bees answer, as good teams do. So Brecksville getting it done on offense there.
You don't get to 8-0 by accident. You know, maybe you get to 5-3 by accident. Maybe you get to 6-2 by accident. You don't get to 8-0 by accident. You're a really good football team no matter who you've played and who you've beaten.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Brecksville. Sure, they haven't played the stiffest of competition, but the thing that we do know, see, sometimes I think people look at, okay, what don't we know? I think sometimes you have to look at, okay, what do we know? Here's what we know about Brecksville Broadview Heights. One of the best offenses in Northeast Ohio, one of the best quarterbacks in Northeast Ohio. So if you're going to tell me that that formula is not going to lead to a team being legit or a team having to validate their 8-0, I'm going to say that you're a little off base there, because when you have that kind of quarterback and you've got that kind of offense and you can scheme guys open like we saw on that touchdown pass, it looked like there was a defensive breakdown there. Yeah, you got a chance, sure.
You may have to outscore teams, but you're equipped to do that.
Yeah, that's what they do. Like, that's who they've been for the last number of years. Why change it now?
Well, another team that is 8-0, Cuyahoga Heights, taking on 8-0 Kirtland. We checked in earlier, Cuyahoga Heights with a 7-0 lead, and Cuyahoga Heights moving the football again as trying to take a 2-score lead. And a good look at the Cuyahoga Heights Redskins moving the football. Lothar keeps it, finds his way into the end zone, and Cuyahoga Heights feeling it. 14-0, they're up on the defending Division VI state champions from Kirtland. 14-0 Cuyahoga Heights. So So now Kirtland really getting pushed. You fall 2 scores behind. And, again, this is a team, Kirtland, they run the football, they do what they do, and they're not going to change it up dramatically. What they're going to go back and say is we got to execute what we do better.
Yeah, and for Cuyahoga Heights, doing it through the air, done on the ground. Brett Lothar, very versatile quarterback, senior, their leader. And for Kirtland, the one thing about them, even though they're not a passing team, they're one of those teams that you find in high school football that they don't need to pass the ball to get a 60-yard big play or a 70-yard big play. All they have to do is turn and hand the ball off. And Kirtland has that ability to get back in the game.
And Kirtland right now with a 0 on the board, not all that surprising because Cuyahoga Heights has shown some defense here so far this year. Yeah, they gave up 28 last week against Berkshire, but before that, 6, 13, 7. Before that, the most they gave up was 21. So this is a Cuyahoga Heights offense that we've already seen tonight what they're capable of against some really good defenses. But the defense for Cuyahoga Heights has been really good this year with the exception of last week against Berkshire.
And we've touched on this a little bit. You can be sure that Al Martin and his Cuyahoga Heights team has been waiting for this game because this is the measuring stick. Kirtland has been to where Cuyahoga Heights wants to be, the state championship game and winning it. So let's see where we stack up. First quarter, Cuyahoga Heights stacks up pretty good.
Yeah, win the quarter, right? That's how you approach it. Win the first quarter.
Yep.
All right, now let's go on and win the second quarter, win the third quarter. If you win more quarters than the other team, you're going to end up winning the game. Sometimes you just need to look at it in those little 12-minute segments.
And you know what? The simplicity of that is you don't look at it as, boy, we have to beat Cuyahoga Heights. You look at it as, okay, let's go and let's win the first 12 minutes. Then let's win the second 12 minutes. And then let's see where we're at. We get to talk about it at halftime, and then you break it down so it's manageable. Another game that we've talked about a little bit, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, 6-2 on the year, taking on 7-1 Hoban. Hoban locked up in the playoffs. NDCL needs a win either this week or possibly next to get in. But the Hoban Knights, boy, they are just outstanding. I mean, everybody talks about Todd Sibley and Danny Clark. Their defense is really good. It's really, really good.
I mean, this is a defense that hasn't given up 14 points all year. So there's that mark that some team is going to have to hit against Hoban. And then you talk about having to try and slow down that Hoban offense. It puts a lot of pressure on the other team going into a game saying, our defense can't give up 14.
Yeah.
Against that offense, we can't give up 14. I mean, in a psychological battle, there's a way that Hoban can beat you before the game even starts.
And for Hoban, too, if they want to, they can come out and play a little field position game. They don't have to worry about taking too many risks against certain teams. They can just say, all right, it's third down, it's fourth down, maybe it's a makeable fourth down, but you know what, let's punt the ball. Let's back this other team up, and let's play some defense. They can kind of win that field position battle, and that's big in the playoffs.
And you know what, that's what they've been doing. They haven't been getting crazy with the offense. They've been, okay, defense set the tone, offense will score enough to win the football game, control the ball. One of the games that we're keeping our eye on, Bedford, needing a win for the playoffs to lock up that spot. Lorain in Division I Region 2 needing a win to lock up their playoff spot. We've seen Lorain with the early 7-0 lead, and Lorain moving the football and really starting to get things done. Again, deep in Bedford territory, and it's Huff with the football, and he gets into the end zone. Boy, that line did the job up front because all of a sudden the ball carrier just appeared in the end zone, and Huff scores the touchdown. 14-0, Lorain leading Bedford. Bearcats have a tough one next week with Copley, so they need to take care of business if they want to be part of that playoff picture in Division II. Still well within the picture, but you lose those 2 games, you're opening the door for a lot of bad things for Bedford.
And for Lorain, it's nice to see other guys getting involved because we come into this game tonight and we come into the season talking about the same people. Obviously, their backup quarterback, Justin Sturgill, but Carlos Chavis is a guy who has emerged, according to head coach Dave McFarland, as our best football player on offense and defense. So the more and more weapons you can get involved going into the postseason, if Lorain can get into the postseason, it's just going to make your offense that much more difficult to defend, and it's going to take more and more pressure off of your backup quarterback.
Well, and right now, pressure on the Bedford Bearcats.
Sure.
Down 14-0. They've got a date with Copley looming next week to finish up the regular season. Bearcats need one of those two games to make sure they're in the playoffs. If they lose both of them, they're relying on too many things to happen for them to get into the postseason. So Sean Williams' guys need to come out with a little bit of a sense of urgency and respond to that 14-0 deficit.
Right, and he's probably talking to his offense right now, too, say, hey, guys, come on. We averaged 39 per game. We've put up some big-time numbers against some quality opponents. 32 against Shaker Heights, 46 against Nordonia. So come on, offense. This has been on you for a lot of the year. We are where we are in part because of our offense and because of quarterback Arshawn Wilson Boone. Now you got to get it in gear. Lorain's a team that can put up points, average about 30-plus per game. So now our offense has to do its job.
Yeah, and look, as a coach, you try to keep your team focused on the week that is, right? But then you're dealing with high school kids that know to look at standings, know where to find them, know the situation. So you have to try and kind of keep guys focused. The old adage in football is what? Control the controllable, right?
Yep.
So that's what you're trying to get your team, if you're Bedford, to focus on. You're down 14-0. The only thing you can control is what happens the rest of this game.
Well, one of the things we know is that Midview and Avon Lake doing battle. The Middies, third in their region. Avon Lake 7th. So the Shoremen really needing a win to kind of hold on and lock up that spot. The Midview Middies trying to lock up a first-round home game, 20-14. Dustin Crum, little move, and Dustin Crum, there's that dual threat guy. He takes it into the end zone. Dustin Crum with the touchdown run, and that will make it a 26-14 point after coming for Midview. I want to remind you that if you're watching this on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel, you can catch this game in its entirety at 11:30. And there is the Midview Middies with the lead on Avon Lake, 27-14. Again, Midview with a win really strengthens the possibility. Not sure it locks it in, but a first-round home game. Always a big thing in the playoffs. Those first-round games are on home sites, then it goes to neutral sites. You obviously want to play at home where you're going to have the loud crowd. You're familiar with the surroundings. You don't have to take a bus ride. So Midview playing for that. Avon Lake playing to keep it. They're in 7th spot. Top 8 make the playoffs.
And every time you see Dustin Crum, it's just so good.
I mean,
the way he found that seam and then just that burst of speed. Once he gets through the line, gets through the hole, defensive back can't catch him. I mean, this is a quarterback. Just such a good player, and it's been fun watching him develop into that quarterback and running that Midview offense for so long.
He seems like he's been there forever.
I
right?
know.
He's one of those guys. It's like Dustin Crum at quarterback. I'm like, don't they graduate in 4 years in high school?
Vet, Dustin Crum.
Exactly. Now, the flip side of it is sometimes their brothers come and play quarterback, too, and then it seems like they've been there for 8 years.
Who was that guy from Ohio State? He was like the gray shirt. He was there for 6 years. Todd Beckman. He's like the Todd Beckman of high school football. And for Avon Lake, look, Avon Lake's not the first team that hasn't had an answer for Dustin Crum, but the Shoremen are probably like this guy again? Are you serious? He piled up 350 and 4 touchdowns against us last year, and now here he is again.
Can you graduate already,
right,
please?
Exactly, please.
Well, they're saying that in about a number of guys for the Hoban Knights. We're going to check back in. Hoban a 10-0 lead as they lead Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, and the Knights driving again, and one of those guys that's been starting since his freshman year is the running back we've talked about, Todd Sibley, and he hasn't graduated yet, but he is a senior, and he is in the end zone for the touchdown, and it is now a 17-0 lead for the Hoban Knights. And this is not a team you want to fall behind. That defense will just pin its ears back if you're going to try to throw the ball, and that offense, as we've said, you can give the ball to Sibley, you can give the ball to Collier, Danny Clark will run with it. So Hoban, well on their way to taking care of business and securing that first-round home game.
Yeah, we spent all that time talking about Collier, and Todd Sibley's like, hey, guys, I'm still here.
Pittsburgh,
just give me the ball inside the 5-yard line. I'll carry you into the end zone.
The Knights won this one on the road against NDCL last year, 49-10. But at home, they have struggled against NDCL. They lost at home in 2014 against the Lions. They lost at home in 2012 against the Lions. So even though they've had this great success recently, at home against NDCL has been a problem before tonight.
17-0 in the second quarter. The Hoban Knights leading Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. Hoban 7-1 on the year. Notre Dame Cathedral Latin 6-2. We're approaching halftime in most of those games. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll be right back, though, inside the Friday Night Huddle here on Time Warner Cable Sports Channel and cleveland.com. Don't go anywhere.
Before I decided to go back to Tri-C to become a nurse, I was a stay-at-home mom. Absolutely wanted to be a pediatric nurse. I love taking care of kids. If you're thinking about changing your career or changing your path, go to Cuyahoga Community College. I feel like I'm in a great place in my life. I have 3 great kids. I have a great job that I love. I could not have done it without Tri-C. My name's Diana Geary. I earned my nursing degree from Cuyahoga Community College.
Just as athletes need proper sleep for optimum performance, so do fans. To be your best, you need your rest on a properly fitted mattress from Mattress Warehouse. A good night's sleep on the right mattress prepares